I have a question for you guys. Do you think that the investors that we're going to be giving Steam Carriages to actually know how to drive the damn things? Or are they going to be giving it to somebody that's going to drive them around? Where's our DMV? It doesn't matter. We shouldn't even care about any of that. So long as they pay, that's all we care about, right? Let's just get to making some of these things. Let's go. Greetings, my Rantians. Hope you all are doing well today, and welcome to another episode of the Anno 1800 Beginner's Guide series. We're going to be talking about Steam Carriages today, but before we start all that, just want to give you guys a little gentle reminder, as always. If you guys haven't joined the Discord quite yet, the link is in the description, along with the main channel page. Same goes with the Instagram. It's also in the same locations. Let's get some more conversations going in there. Let's start working on some community-based events because I really want you guys to be a part of this. This is a growing entity that you all are an active part of, and I definitely do not want you to miss out. Totally up to you, of course, but let's get on to what we have to produce. So, we want to focus today on Steam Carriages, and Steam Carriages are located in the Investor tab right at the end over here in the production chain. Now, I want to talk about the Steam Carriages production chain itself. Actually, let me just do a little bit of a backtracking. I did mention in the previous episode that I was going to talk about lifestyle needs in this one as well. I have decided against that because that is a whole different can of worms that I want to actually discuss in depth because it's different for every single citizen tier. So I will probably put that for the next episode. In this one, we're just going to be focusing on the last need that our investors want, being the Steam Carriages. So let's take a look at the production chain. Sorry about that. And we'll notice that a big bulk of this are actually going towards the Steam motors themselves. That is totally fine. Okay, because you're already producing this. You're making it for like the ships, the tractors, all that good stuff. And the timer for this, and what I want to also mention is the timers for this particular chain are a little bit wonky. We have the motor assembly line here that requires electricity. And as we know from previous guide episodes, requiring electricity means that we actually do need electricity in order for the building to even function. Otherwise, it's not going to even work. That timer is going to be irrelevant. This requires electricity is going to make it process one steam motor every 45 seconds. Any specialist that you put in a trade union after that will reduce the timer. The other end of this particular chain are the Coachmakers. Now, take a look at that timer. 2 minutes to produce some chassis. I want to hurl. It's terrible. I hate it. But it's improved by electricity, so that's a plus. If we have electricity connected to this damn building, we'll have it process chassis one every minute. That is better. But hold it for a moment. You need lumberjack huts so you can produce wood here. And you also need caoutchouc coming in from the New World. If you're taking this to an island that already has penny farthings, for example, being produced, then you will have caoutchouc there. And that's perfect. But if you don't, then you're going to have to do another route and get that stuff to where you need it to go. The Coachmakers are... How can I put this properly? They are a carpentry type building chain, which means if you come across specialists that tell you they are part of carpentry, it will more than likely work with the Coachmakers. So that is a plus. Downside to it is really the timer. So I've already built these things over on the industrial island because I've tried to actually record this episode 5 times now, and I somehow managed to fumble my way into making it so it's not cohesive and actually explaining things properly. So hopefully this time it's going to work. Let's head over to the industrial island. And we have the buildings right over here. As you can see, our workforce, let's take a look at this first. The workforce that we have is kind of sus. We don't have a lot of farmers. That's not bad. We have a lot of workers. Okay. Not a lot of artisans, but a bunch of engineers. What we've done is essentially paused specific buildings, as you can clearly see here with the steam motors. We have over 500 steam motors in here because these guys have been working constantly. We also have over 200 of the advanced weapons, so we've stopped these as well. And all these put together are providing an additional workforce that we want to reallocate towards this new chain, at least for the time being. We can probably go ahead and start these things up again, but let's first get through the chain itself and then talk about that. So As we mentioned before, we're going to need the steam motors, and then we're going to need the Coachmakers. Now, the Coachmakers have a really cool building, in my opinion. It looks like a repurposed shed, and I like this one. I love it, but I hate the timer. What I will highly recommend to you guys is when you're getting to this point, have a trade union devoted to the motor assembly lines and a trade union devoted towards the Coachmakers, because some of their specialists can overlap. For example, like Ferris, but you will find that not everything does. And if you really want to optimize your stuff, which you should be doing at this point, you want to make sure that a trade union is set for each one. And I did receive some comments in the previous episode discussing how to get influence, because influence is definitely required in order to build up these trade unions. For those of you who are on console, it's very difficult, or not very difficult. It is more difficult to get as you can see, the game actually told me that I've been trying to do this for 2 damn hours. It's more difficult to get the influence than those who are on PC. For PC players, getting influence is an absolute joke. But for those who are on console, the best way that you can possibly get influence is to increase your global population, because you gain 20 influence through that route, or going ahead and actually upgrading engineers into investors. Depending on your difficulty level, that's the number of influence you will get. On easy, you'll get +3. On intermediate, you'll get +2. On expert, you'll get +1 for each upgrade. That's one way of getting a lot of influence. Additionally, if you do have ships that are pretty much like you want to phase out, for example, you have schooners, you don't want them anymore, consider selling them, because each one of those are also have a little bit of influence dangling above their heads. Moving back over to the chain, the Coachmakers right now are producing one chassis once every 48 seconds, and that is with Ferris. If Ferris wasn't in here, then we would be having one every minute. So that's already helping us quite significantly, I feel. But if we go over here, let's talk about the Mac Daddy of this, the cab assembly line itself. And the building looks really cool. Personally, I like to mass produce on this chain, because your citizens aren't going to want a lot of them. They just want to have them. There's a difference. If you guys have the Land of the Lions DLC, and now I'm talking to PC players specifically, Emperor Katima, if you have Land of the Lions as mentioned, will purchase cabs for, I kid you not, over 70,000 coins. I don't remember the exact number, but it is insane. Like, that man has the deepest pockets I've ever heard of in this particular game. You can legitimately be in the negative up here with your workforce, your taxes, all these things, your maintenance costs. But if you're like maximizing on the cabs, you are never going to go bankrupt in this game. And in my expert campaign, for example, we have around 7 or 8 cab assembly lines that are sending cabs to at least 4 major islands. 4 major islands that are all at investors that all want cabs. That's how strong this chain is. But it's processing at 30 seconds. So on the flip side, it is really taking up a lot of our resources here in order to produce these things, but it is a very good thing to produce altogether. The other thing is that this particular building chain does come with a little bit of a problem. Apart from the timers, I ask you this at this point, because you are now what I would like to consider intermediate when it comes to understanding the game, really. I ask you a simple question. Do you want to be allocating steam motors for this chain? If you answered no, then you are correct. The reason for this is these steam motors are a lot more valuable to produce ships, tractors, and stuff like that. There are specialists in this game that change the input value of the cab assembly line. For example, off the top of my head, there is a woman named Susanna, of whom she will replace the input of the steam motors with filaments. And then once every 4 cycles, she will actually provide you with 1 light bulb ton. And that's really powerful. There's also another specialist, her name is Maria, of whom changes the input of the steam motor to just a simple motor. We haven't spoken about the simple motors at all, because those actually come from the New World. But the really cool thing with her is that you get extra cabs every couple cycles. So one motor could essentially make 2 cabs. You see where I'm getting at with this? This chain can get very powerful. The only problem, and I apologize that there's no real workaround with this, are the accursed Coachmakers. But like I said, you can get a whole bunch of specialists devoted to carpentry works for them. And if you do have the Seat of Power DLC, talking to my PC friends, then you can always go over here and get the 1 additional item slot for trade unions. This is way late game though, because look how much actual attractiveness you need in order for that thing to be active, right? If you activate that and put 4 items into these trade unions instead of just 3, so like for example, this guy might actually work. Let's move him out of here. You might be finding yourself in a position that these Coachmakers, you might actually be able to make it a 1-to-1. From what I recall in the expert campaign, these guys are working at around 32 seconds roughly, and we need it to be 30 seconds. But when you put more resources into that chain, into that building specifically, it's going to just work faster. So the Coachmakers are never, ever, ever going to reach the same timer value as the cab assembly line. I'm telling you all of this because this is a ridiculously important chain, and I don't know what the hell happened to my artisan workforce. I don't care either. But what I want to focus on now is actually seeing if we put the cabinet maker in here, is it going to work? Let's see. He does indeed. So it just supplements what I just said. Because it's a carpentry work, it's 30% extra plus ferrous, so that's going to be at 80%. And now they're processing a coach or chassis at 42 seconds. At the end of the day, you want to start transporting all these towards your main island. And right over here, we're taking 7. And 7 is pretty substantial. So right over here, if we take a look-see, and this has been happening for quite some time, we now have almost everything that we want in here. The only thing that we're lacking is the coffee, but that is just because the route has not been fully optimized. That is something common that you will also run into. We will talk about optimizations when going back to the New World, because you're going to need to have a lot of coffee brought over here as soon as possible. These guys are not going to ever tell you, hey, it's okay that I don't have the coffee. They're going to be like, where's my damn coffee? So we'll work on that in the next episode. I'm also, just for everyone's heads up, I'm going to be making placing the tier maker videos in its own playlist soon, because I kind of wanted to work with that in tandem with the guide, as I had been mentioning which DLCs are good, which DLCs are not, in my opinion, along with cosmetic packs. So I'll be making its own playlist for those ones. Go check them out. I'll put the actual playlist clickable link for you if you haven't taken a look-see at them at the end of this video, which is coming up right now. So you guys can take a look-see at them. There's 2 currently. More than likely we'll be making more because the reception on them are very, very, very good. So I'd like to just continue building on that momentum. Until next time, my friends, thank you so much. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it and learned something. More importantly, that's the most important thing about this. You have to learn. That's why you're watching this. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll be more than happy to answer whatever you would like. Within the reason, of course. And the normal spiel exit. Please consider like, commenting, subscribing, hitting the bell button, sharing it with your friends. And I'll catch you in the next episode, my Rantians.